Hey everyone, welcome back to the Adventure Guide, and today I've got two stories, one in northern Kentucky and one in southern Ohio, just 10 miles apart. Fantastic stories with great locations, and I'm sure you're going to want to go out and hunt and investigate at these sites. As you know, most Dogman encounters end with the eyewitness being scared off or terrorized, but this encounter at an abandoned hospital ended fairly bloody. Quote, pain like nothing I've ever felt. It grabbed just above my ankle and yanked, and in doing so shredded my boot at the end of my jeans and into my flesh. I was able to pull myself into the first floor window. This is a direct quote from someone known only as I Am, and his ordeal is not over, but I will tell the story, the location, and other useful tidbits. But before we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Alright, let's jump into this. I was actually trying to find out more about a Dogman comment that I read posted on a YouTube video long ago that haunts a bridge just a few miles north of this encounter, when I stumbled upon this event at Hayswood Hospital in Maysville, Kentucky. I'll talk about the Dogman at the end of this video, but for now let's focus on this hospital. First, before you consider visiting this location to hunt for the Dogman or any of the entities possessing the hospital, you need the following. 1. A tetanus shot, as sharp, rusty objects hang down in the dark. 2. An asbestos-grade mask, as many of these hospitals tend to have lots of coatings of asbestos, an old fire retardant in them, and it's one of the top carcinogens. So this guy who did not reveal anything more than his initials I Am and that he lives in Ohio, however, he and his friends traveled to Hayswood Hospital at least 20 times. He knew the layout, the objects strewn about within, sounds, smells, everything about this place extremely well. But on his last visit, he recalls immediately when he opened the car door that he felt dread and a warning within not to go inside the hospital, but he did anyways. He entered with his 3 friends and they wandered about as a group for about 45 minutes till each of them wanted to go to a separate location. So they decided to split up. Our eyewitness, I Am, decided to head down into the basement and go to the morgue. This is a paranormal hotspot to pick up EVPs, orbs, and other exciting evidence. The hallways in the basement are puddled with water, so each step reveals a loud splash unless you creep along slowly. As he went to the morgue, he picked up a new odor that he'd never smelt before, and also the strong sense of dread. It was a foul, rotting odor and was overwhelming, but he pushed on. As he meandered through the passageways to the morgue, the smell of decay grew more intense. When he got to the morgue, the smell was so strong, there was obviously something rotting in this room. He scanned the floor and area with his flashlight. Then he found it. Deep within this labyrinth, going to the morgue, was about 40 pounds of unidentifiable rotting meat, organs, and bones. As he began to disturb it and see what it was, he heard his friends coming. They violently slammed one of the metal doors and began running down the hallway, loudly splashing in the water. He decided to one-up them and position himself to scare them before they could scare him. He climbed up on top of the body coolers and waited to spring upon them and teach them a lesson who was the king of scaring. As he sat patiently, he heard what he called a, quote, scream, and it was none of his friends. Then it screamed again as it neared, and now he knew it wasn't human. Then it was panting so hard it could be heard coming down the hallway. There was still 2 steel doors between it and the morgue, and one makes a slamming sound, leaving just one left between it and the morgue. The smell of wet dog began to fill the room, and an even stronger odor of that rotting decay. He could hear it breathing with great labor as it was sniffing around for him. I Am began backing up on the coolers as they bordered the boiler room, and lucky for him, the wall wasn't finished above the coolers, so he could slide into the next room. Just as he gets to the edge, the door slams open to the morgue. The handle shatters the tiles on the wall as it steps in. There's only 35 feet between him and whatever this thing is. The room fills with the sounds of its sniffing, and then it picks up I Am's scent and begins to growl. I Am slides off the backside and drops into the boiler room. This buys him a lot of time, as the door from the boiler room to the morgue is barricaded with a large locker turned over on its side and a ton of gurneys. The thing would have to go a long distance around to get where he's at. It rammed the door to no avail and began to claw it, quote, It sounded like Freddy Krueger was trying to carve his way through the steel door. Then I heard the sound that haunts me to this day. It howled, and I mean it bellowed a howl so loud I had to cover my ears. I.M. was almost home free, as the next room over from the boiler room was the generator room, and it had the loading docks. He sprinted for the generator door. As he did, the thing began ramming the door from the morgue. He could hear the locker and gurneys giving way, and now there was a small opening. I.M. opened the door going to the loading docks, and he turned around and he shined his flashlight back to the door going to the morgue, and he could see its arm reach through that small opening. And he described it as, quote, "It was a gray and brown mass of fur. It looked like a human arm, but it didn't because the hand was all wrong. The hand had 5 digits, but the claws would have made a bear run in fear." I slammed the door behind me and ran for the dock doors. The dock doors wouldn't budge, and I could hear the gurneys overturning and the locker sliding on the floor. It was getting through, and the only thing between it and me is now a single door. I ran to one of the windows by the dock doors and proceeded to bust it out, which mangled my hand from the glass. Then, as I was pulling myself through the window, I heard the door get slammed into, and one of the hinges completely flew off the door and hit the wall. I tumbled out the window, hit the cold, wet ground. When I stood up, I saw it in the doorway. I.M. was a tall guy of 6'4" and weighing 250 pounds. He said this thing filled the doorway. He shined his light onto it and saw what was, quote, "covered head to toe in gray-brown fur. It was a very narrow snout, almost like a Doberman Pinscher, and its ears were just barely visible because of the doorway. But I could tell they were pointing upwards like a dog." I.M. began running into the woods to go around the hospital, but just a few steps in, it was obvious he wasn't going to make it. He turned back to the hospital and jumped up on the fire escape, which just a little ways up was completely encaged with mesh plating. He could hear this thing destroy the window frame to get out as he climbed frantically with his blood-gushing hand. Quote, "Just as I was reaching the first floor window that I could climb into, this thing slammed into the fire escape ladder, knocking me down a couple of rungs. It leaped onto the outside of the fire escape and began clawing at my feet. Just as I reached the window, I felt it. Pain like nothing I've ever felt. It grabbed just above my ankle and yanked, and in doing so, shredded my boot, the end of my jeans, and into my flesh. I was able to pull myself into the first floor window when I heard it push off the fire escape and head back the way it came. I'm now dragging my left leg and trying to keep my right hand in my hoodie pocket. The entrance we came in was now only 150 feet away down the main hall and around the left turn. As I'm halfway down the hall, I hear the steel door slamming again. I'm dragging myself down the hall, just trying to stay focused on getting out of this hellhole. Then the howling starts again, and I can hear it getting closer. I make the turn, and I hear the pounding coming up the stairs from the basement. I make it into the entrance and hear the patting of hands and feet on the floor. I made the mistake of looking back just as it rounded the corner, and it was running on all fours like a real dog. I bolted down the hill towards the street where the car was parked and realized the car was gone. They left me. My only way of escape was gone. I.M. ran across the street, and he frantically began wailing on a house door. An old lady answered, and he shoved his way in past her and slammed the door. As he was closing the door, he could see it crossing the street and entering her driveway. As he was preoccupied with this beast, the old lady had called the police on him. When the police saw his situation, they called the EMTs, and he finished reporting his account by saying, quote, "The EMTs took me to the hospital, and when they did, blood work found no substance in my system. They then concluded I was attacked by a wild dog. I ended up with 36 stitches in my leg and 17 in my hand. I had to get rabies shots and tell the local wildlife officer my story." I.M. was told that he was attacked by wild dogs, but even the doctor was puzzled by the claw slash. He finished it with this, quote, I have no doubt what stalked me that night was a dogman. I know it in my bones. However, there's a number of people that don't think this was a dogman, but a skinwalker. The pile of flesh on the floor of the morgue had no fur. It was just a pile of meat and what appeared to be a dog. Therefore, many speculate it was someone evil who took the pelt to transform themselves, and also why this thing had an extra deep rotting smell to it. Either way, this thing is terrifying. If you want to have an exciting getaway for the weekend, you can rent the Moon and River Bed and Breakfast. It's only a few houses down from the hospital at 320 Market Street in Maysville, Kentucky. You can actually see the hospital from the front porch. The only thing is, I'm not certain on the legal status of entering that hospital. You may need to get permission first. Check before entering and never trespass. If the hospital is closed to the public, that's alright. Just jump in your car and head 10 miles north to the North Pole Covered Bridge. A goatman named Neff haunts this bridge. As you try to cross the bridge after midnight, this thing appears and it charges you, and as it does, it chatters its teeth. That is all the details that are available about Neff, and here's the coordinates for that bridge. I'll also post them in the comments below so you can copy and paste them in Google. There is ample parking, no hours posted, and you can investigate at any time, night or day. So if you go out to either of these sites and investigate, please tell us about your experience in the comments below. Also, if you do your own YouTube video, be sure to talk about that as well. Give the name of your channel and the video so that we can help direct traffic to your channel. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and until next time, we're off on another adventure. God bless.